My dear people of the once independent state of Southern Cameroons, my dear people of Ambazonia, revolutionary greetings to all and sundry. Today is the 24th of July 2020, and my name is John Ba Akuro. My dear people, I come today with a very important communication. The discussion of today is very determining for a lot of things that are going to be unfolding in the days ahead regarding the quest of the people of the once independent state of Southern Cameroons for total freedom. As you listen to this conversation, as you listen to this communication, please do well to share it as much as possible with all our people so that they may be edified by the information I have to share this day. My dear people, a lot of things have happened over the past few days, and these things have the potential to undermine our collective effort for freedom. There is so much talk out there, a lot of conspiracy theories flying here and there as to what is actually happening in the various compartments of our movement. My dear people, insults, name calling, and all sorts of attacks on people and plans actually to even see the demise of some actors in this movement has become the order of the day. I notice that to some actors in this movement, the only way they can remain relevant, the only way they can exert some kind of power is by ensuring that others either completely cease to exist or die. And once you do not sing the chorus in the music they are playing, they call you names. My dear people, before I proceed, I'd like us to share this very important thought by Richard B. Spence. He says, so how can we determine what's real and what's not? We can't. We can just pick and choose what we want to believe and rationalize it as best we can. Reality, after all, is basically a movie projected inside our heads. It's based on the colors our senses permit us to see, the sounds they permit us to hear, and whatever else our brains let slip through the gates. But outside our limited senses, surrounding us, there is unquestionably a much greater reality, a universe we live in but cannot see. Well, most of us, anyway, out there in the dark, all things are possible. This thought is by Richard B. Spence. If you have taken time off to listen to the 29-minute recording by Chris Anu lately, you will understand exactly where I'm coming from. My dear people, reference to history, and of course a history that sometimes has been so poorly reported, a history that has definitely and generally been used to attribute blame rather than expose exactly what happened so that we have the possibility to assess the actors based on the objective information before our eyes is not a history that definitely should be a leeway or should be the way to go. We always turn to history to know what happened before us. We always turn to history to learn from the mistakes of others. We always turn to history to copy what others did well. My dear brothers and sisters of the once independent state of Southern Cameroons, I think a careful look at the history of the Southern Cameroons, especially the period leading to 1961, will reveal very clearly that Foncha, Muna, Jua, Endele, NNBile, and all of those people who were alive at that time did achieve a lot. They did so much for us. We have decided to pick and choose what we want to hear, what we want to see, and what we want to believe. And that has led us to downplaying the magnitude of the benefits we have secured from the actions they took. It took the courage of these gentlemen and women who were with them at the time to pull us out of Enugu and return to Buea in 1954, where they set up a government to found that autonomy that ended up being that of the people of the Southern Cameroons. It was their courage in doing that that resulted at least to that referendum in 1961, where we were given the opportunity to choose where we wanted to go after we achieved our independence. Foncha, Muna, Joa, Endele, and others were on their own, facing not just La République du Cameroun, but a powerhouse of world diplomacy in France. These people, because of the conspiracies already cast between the British and the French, were never given a third choice. They were never given an opportunity to determine whether upon achieving independence, the Southern Cameroons should be on its own. They were forced to choose between fire and the deep blue sea. And the choices they made at the time were based on what knowledge they had at their disposal at that time. We will talk about Fumban. What even convinces us so seriously that what Ahidjo said to the rest of the delegation, that Foncha had the document, being the constitution, in his keeping for days or weeks prior to the Fumban conference, was true. We have lived long enough to understand the pattern and the behavior of the people of La République du Cameroun and France, to understand that these are people who live and build on deception, who live and build on divide and rule. At that time, it will be Foncha's word against Ahidjo's. I have combed the pages of history to see where Foncha himself anywhere admits to that fact. I haven't seen it yet. I know there are a lot of historians out there writing. I have read Dr. Anthony in this golden age of the Southern Cameroons. I have read everything written by Professor Victor Julius Ngo. I have read a lot of things too, written by Professor Zengwa. My brothers and sisters of the Southern Cameroons, we have sometimes to take a break and look at things objectively and know how to attribute blame. I think, from the look of things this far, if care is not taken, we will gradually come to the conclusion that the Munas, the Fonchas, the Joas, the Endeles, without the kind of education we have today, really did outperform us. For one thing, these are people who were very united in their diverse thoughts. For one thing, these are people who were very patriotic, who put the interests of Southern Cameroons first. For one thing, these are people who knew that it was only by bonding together that they could at least attain something. They were collectively outsmarted, not because they were not sensible enough, but because after 1961, President Amadou Ahidjo, backed by France, had the force with him and could do anything he could on them. I have recalled here before how Foncha cried when he was backing down from positions and told Ahidjo, we may not be able to fight today, but our children will fight for us. This tells you the degree of remorse that they had, see exactly what had happened. In 1995, the late John Gu Foncha, the late S.T. Muna, led a delegation to the United Nations to complain and to formally ignite, set the basis and give impetus to this movement of the Southern Cameroons for freedom once more. They had the rare opportunity that anyone in history has ever had to be alive long enough to start righting the wrongs that they might have been involved in, both voluntarily, if it was, and sometimes involuntarily. My dear people, when you want to do a comparison between that time and now, you have to judge the environment at that time and the environment now. When I listen to that and I hear that what is considered a checkered history is about to repeat itself, I opened my ears to hear exactly what was in the offing. Unfortunately, all what I heard were conspiracy theories. Everything that I heard came simply from the figment of the imagination of Mr. Anu, with just one objective, one. That avowed objective was simply to discredit some people, to mudsling some people, to see as much as possible how to bring doom and calamity on those he believes that are not sharing the philosophy of his faction of the IG. Listen, Mba Akuro, along with the consortium that I have the opportunity to lead, were the first to come out with 2 consecutive press releases after the meeting between Sisiku Ayuk Tabe and members of the intelligence community of La République du Cameroon, who were representing La République du Cameroon. We were the first to point out and make clear that there will be no ceasefire. If such a ceasefire will not be supervised and implemented by the United Nations, if that ceasefire will not be supervised by an international armed force that will stand along the natural and internationally recognized boundary between La République du Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons, we were the first to point that out. Item. We were also the first to make it very clear, abundantly clear, that asking La République du Cameroon to withdraw its army only into the barracks on our territory and then let the police and gendarmes continue, I quote, to maintain law and order as before, was tantamount to surrender. And because that simply indicated a return to normalcy, what La République du Cameroon has been wanting to do without giving anyone the opportunity to look at the root cause of the ongoing conflict. We were the first. We were the first to point out that it was out of question for us to go out there and be asking for general amnesty from La République du Cameroon, which would seem like we were asking La République du Cameroon authorization or permission to get into our territory. And I came out in a video recording to point out that once we have an international military force posted on the international boundary between La République du Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons to supervise and implement a ceasefire, at that time, the issue of general amnesty is resolved, because you will not fear anything to get into the Southern Cameroons out and out, which is your territory. I'd like anyone listening to me now to tell me how this amounts to surrender. I'd like anyone listening to me now to tell me how this amounts to wanting to sell the Southern Cameroons. I want anyone listening to me now to tell me how this amounts to participating in the construction of a coalition for surrender. My dear people, we have undergone this kind of sophistry for a long time. And each time the avowed purpose is only to muzzling other people. But in the end, what it achieves is division, much to the joy of the oppressor, La République du Cameroon. At this point, let me say this. When people come out and make such audios, make such utterances, they tell you that they are doing that out of patriotism, out of love for country. But Ronald Reagan has a different thought about that. That's what he says. If we love our country, we should also love our countrymen. If we ever forget that we are one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under. Patriotism is the virtue of the vicious. My dream is of a place and a time where Americans will once again be seen as the last best hope on earth. Is that the kind of Southern Cameroons you are wishing for? Is that the kind of Southern Cameroons you are hoping for? Where we proclaim that we love our country, we first of all begin by loving our fellow countrymen. My dear people, I don't understand, absolutely not, why a people who are free will spend all their time being threatened, feeling insecure, and only wanting to continue pounding people who are already in detention, pounding people who are already serving life jail, pounding people who don't even know if they will ever be able to regain their freedom, pounding people who are even on appeal, and which appeal even has the possibility of turning the life jail to a death sentence. When you come out there and announce that Ayuk Tabe, who is in prison, along with several hundreds, even thousands of our other compatriots, facing horrible conditions for our sake, when you come out there and say they are in incarceration and forming an army, what are you doing? You are giving ammunition. You are serving yourself evidence to the oppressor to use this in deciding that they should be beheaded, that they should be killed. That is why I call what Chris Anu and others are doing a death sentence on all our brothers and sisters who are detained in various dungeons across La République du Cameroon. No. The objective is not just to secure the freedom of our people. No. The objective is to hang on to some virtual power, to some imaginary power that they feel they have acquired. Now, let's get into some of the merits of the issues as pointed out. Why is there talk today about a ceasefire? I suppose each and every one of us should understand that if there are talks today about a ceasefire, it is because the Secretary General of the United Nations urged all conflict areas around the world, all conflict hotspots around the world, those involved, to sign up to a global ceasefire to allow for the fight against COVID-19 to become more effective. And now let me bring out this very interesting fact. The first actor in our movement to sign up to that ceasefire call was Comrade Ebenezer Akwanga of the APLM. The APLM is one of the organizations that signed up to act. And that ceasefire declared by Comrade Ebenezer Akwanga was unilateral. It had not even a single precondition. It didn't even require La République du Cameroun to reciprocate. Chris Anu's IG belongs to that same act. Did we see this kind of condemnation from Mr. Anu? Hell no. Hell no, we didn't see it. When Sisiku Julius Ayuk Tabe, and I am not his fan, no. But at the same time, I'm not his hater, no. Because hatred is too big a burden for me to ever bear. I have disagreed with Sisiku Ayuk Tabe on principle and on certain issues, but that doesn't make him an enemy. That doesn't make me feel that the only thing that should make me happy is that he should die or that he should be in detention. My dear people, when Sisiku Ayuk Tabe and others there are called to discuss. They even had the temerity to give some conditions, to give 4 conditions for a ceasefire to be in operation. Even if some of us, especially those of us of the consortium, including myself, considered some of those conditions lame and unacceptable. But at least he had the temerity with his group to set out preconditions, something Comrade Ebenezer Akwanga of the Act did not do. And now, Chris Anu says that if we have to go for negotiations and all of those things, it should be without preconditions. And he said there will never be any precondition for anything. But my dear brothers and sisters, the first time the Secretary General of the United Nations called for a global ceasefire, and Comrade Ebenezer Akwanga went ahead to issue a unilateral ceasefire, Comrade Sako Samuel Ikome signed a press release in which he outlined a number of preconditions that should be observed for a ceasefire to come into operation that will allow his faction of the IG to sign up to a ceasefire. Today, we hear Chris Anu say there will never be any preconditions before anything. That press release is out there. I think one thing we need to learn as a people is to make sure each time our people come out and talk, take note, keep these things, because you will need to refer to these things sometimes and compare to the new things they say and ask yourself questions. At that time, you'll be able to make an informed decision based on a comparison of what they said yesterday and what they are saying today. I'd like us to note again that when Mr. Anu says Comrade Ayuk Tabe was poised to betray right from the first day, I asked myself this question. Was he aware of this when he accepted an appointment from the same Sisiku Ayuk Tabe? When he knew that this man was set and poised to betray from day one? This is very important. I'd like to refer you to a communication I sent out earlier on in May, in which I indicated that Sisiku Ayuk Tabe Julius had a meeting with the Prime Minister of La République du Cameroun, John Gute. It is me who brought that fact out, and even indicated that there was another meeting planned, and even went ahead to give out in graphic details what was discussed. My dear people, I think there is not a single person in this movement who alone has the monopoly of representation to talk on behalf of the people of the Southern Cameroons. No. There are a lot of people, even as I speak, who are out there in diplomatic missions, who are out there in international organizations, who are out there in various countries, stomping, seeking support for our movement. A good lot of them. Will you go and stop them? Because they were not sent to go and talk on our behalf by Mr. Chris Anu. There is something that Chief Justice Aya Paul Abine pointed out, and I want to harp on it. He said, at this point, there is not a single person, not a single entity with an outright mandate obtained in normal circumstances, following due process from the people of the Southern Cameroons to speak on our behalves. The people of the Southern Cameroons have submitted to a good lot of organizations and individuals leading those organizations to provide guidance, and to help pilot this movement for freedom. Those are two different things. This means that what? This means the people of the southern Cameroons, who have generally been yearning to see all these movements and actors work together, tell themselves if they all work together, they each represent various factions of our community by their own right. And in that manner, you now have what is considered the corporate ability for these people to speak and we agree sometimes with what they have said. Talking about representation, let me make this clear. Among all of us in the front lines, whom the people of the southern Cameroons agree with to provide guidance for this movement, there is one person, who enjoys some degree of elective mandate from the representatives of these various movements, groups, and organizations. At the third conclave in Canaan land, all the frontline movements as are known today were represented. And at that conclave, there was a vote. That was the second time after the first vote at the second conclave. All the representatives of the various movements were present, and we elected Sisiku Julius Ayuk-Tabe as chairman of the governing council. We went ahead to elect him in absentia because the erstwhile leader of this movement, Pa Wilfred Tassan, decided voluntarily to step down in the interest of the movement. He considered that having contributed a lot at the helm of the movement, he had been praying and had a communication with the Almighty, who urged him to step aside and push from behind while concentrating on the spiritual aspect of our movement. And so he decided to step down. And all these movements, we all elected, because I voted too. We all elected Sisiku Julius Ayuk-Tabe at the super level to be chairman of the governing council. Now, get this right. Where some of us, and a lot of us, disagreed with Sisiku Julius Ayuk-Tabe, and each went our separate ways, was when he decided unilaterally, with a few people he called country heads, to transform the governing council into an interim government against expert advice. We were working with international experts at the time who advised us and made clear that if we went ahead to form an interim government without any country recognizing us and ready to host that government, we were going to turn the whole movement into politics. We would abandon the quest for freedom and begin fighting power, which is exactly what is happening now. And this started from the first day an interim government was formed. The movement became politics. Politics took front stage. And from that moment to this day, it has been a constant fight for power until this day, exactly what the experts predicted. That is where a good lot of us fell off with Sisiku Ayuk-Tabe. And I've said it 1,001 times. I recognize Sisiku Julius Ayuk-Tabe as a leader of this movement in his capacity as chairman of the governing council. As far as anything interim government is concerned, that is where he and I parted ways. And that is where we still part ways. So apart from Pa Tassan, who had enjoyed that super mandate, the next and only one is Sisiku Julius Ayuk-Tabe. Now, where he is, does he have the capacity to lead negotiations? Hell no. That we are all agreed. There is nobody, I think even he himself, definitely should agree with the fact that he doesn't have the capacity to lead any negotiations. But should he refuse to talk with anyone who wants to talk with him on our behalf? Hell no. He should not refuse. He has the right, like every one of us, to go out there and talk with any person who wants to talk about the situation in the southern Cameroons. But on one condition, he definitely always has to remind these people that whatever I say, whatever we discuss with you, whatever agreement we come to is temporal, because there is no agreement that will be binding on the people of the Southern Cameroons if they do not subscribe to it. Can Sisi Kujilius Ayuk Tabe as an individual force any agreement down the throats of 8 million Southern Cameroonians? I think the answer to this is no. Let me give you a simple example of another time where people have tried to force something down the throats of our people, and they said no. We all remember that in December 2018, Chris Anu, and their faction of the IG came out there and announced that they were suspending the Monday Ghost Town, the symbolic civilian sacrifice, which continues to tell the world that this movement is something that is fathered by all Southern Cameroonians. They wanted to suspend it from December 15 to January 15, December 15, 2018 to January 15, 2019, claiming it was to give people respite during the feast period. And I recall, because I have that recording, Chris Anu swearing and doubling down that anyone who will go out there to respect ghost towns during that specific period will be called an enemy of this movement. Oh yes, our people rejected that call. Our people on Ground Zero rejected that call. Why? Because it did not resonate with their aspirations. Because it did not resonate with what they wanted. This tells you that the people of the Southern Cameroons are sovereign. This is a term Big Brother Bo Herbert always has the habit of using. Sovereign. So the people of the Southern Cameroons are sovereign, knowledgeable enough, intelligent enough, and determined enough to know what they want. Nobody will force anything down their throats. No amount of conspiracy theory will cause the people of the Southern Cameroons to accept what they don't want to accept. My dear people, this attitude of always demonizing people because they don't agree with you is what has brought bad blood into this movement. You want to doubt it? I'll give you a simple, easy example. And by the way, even before I came to start this recording, I received a press release from the Republic of Ambazonia, the movement led by Fongodi Dinka, the father of Ambazonia, indicating or announcing their withdrawal from the act. They are saying too many things in that press release. They are accusing the rest of the members of ACT of having direct involvement, holding sacred talks, and reaching sacred deals with La République du Cameroun without the approval of the rest of the members of the ACT. This is a grave accusation. And this accusation is not just falling from the blues. Should this be why we have people out there now in total frenzy, struggling to muscling others? You condemn in broad daylight any direct discussions with La République du Cameroun, while behind our backs, you are conducting the same thing you are condemning. This is not just hypocrisy. It is absolute wickedness. Look here. Number one, when our brother Commando in Batibo was acting under the auspices of Chris Anu's faction of the IG, he was named an angel. Today, because Commando has said he does not want to have anything to do with anyone who will call them to say they should turn their arms against each other, that he will work with every other actor in Momo County that is working for the freedom of the people of Ambazonia. Today, Chris Anu, John Egyawan, Bo Herbert, Barrister Fu Jonso name him a terrorist. It is the same thing we're hearing about Ayeke. It is the same thing they did at one point about Nambere, who today has moved to the other side. It is the same thing they are saying about Arake. And just so you know, that it is the same thing they said about Alaji in Bafut local government area. But just so you know, even as I'm talking to you, they are under the tables negotiating with the same people they are calling terrorists to come back under them. If they come back under them, they will no longer be called terrorists. As I'm talking to you, they are on the phone banging the same Alaji. Fu Jonso celebrated his death on ABC, celebrated his death in the hands of La République du Cameroon. Fortunately, he didn't die, and called him a terrorist. Today, John Egyawan is calling Alaji every minute and asking him to come under them. The same thing they are doing with RK. The same thing they are doing with all the others that they are branding terrorists. And when you start calling your own people the name your oppressor is calling you, what service are you doing to yourself? Are you doing a service to yourself, or you are doing a service to that one who seeks to destroy you? Or it is because the mad frenzy to destroy others has blinded you to the fact that in the end, you are also going to be destroying yourself. My dear people, this communication is certainly long, but it is absolutely important because we have to know exactly what is happening around us. That is why Ronald Reagan, again, one-time president of the United States of America, says to sit back, hoping that someday, some way, someone will make things right, is to go on feeding the crocodile, hoping he will eat you last, but eat you he will. This is the reason I decided to come out here and respond to that 29-minute diatribe. Because in the past I've told myself that our people are smart enough to be able to decipher what is wrong and from what is right. But the avalanche of calls I've received from people seeking to know again from me, Mr. Mbayakuro, we have trusted you all this while. Could it be that we're mistaken in trusting you when actually you are out there working against our interests? I'd like to point out two very important things here. Two very important things that you should know. And take note about those things, because they are fundamental in determining how we prosecute this movement. Number one, write it down. La République du Cameroun is not interested in federalism. No, it is not. Number two, where we are now and talking, La République du Cameroun is not ready yet for any form of negotiations. La République du Cameroun still believes so strongly in a military option. Just as there is division in our movement, that is how there is division on the side of La République du Cameroun. But those who still believe so strongly in a military solution are in the majority that way. Now, why are these 2 points very fundamental and important? Because, one, when you keep it in your mind that there is something called federation that can be negotiated and obtained somewhere, it distracts you from facing the real situation as it is before us. If you keep it in your mind that La République is ready for some negotiation somewhere, it distracts you from continuing to work very hard to make those negotiations possible, to make La République du Cameroun begin to see negotiations as an emergency. If we don't continue to work very hard, La République du Cameroun will not see any need for negotiations. They distract us with all of those things because they know that they will cause us to lose our concentration. And once we lose our concentration, they have the opportunity to penetrate our weakened lines in the hope of acquiring the military victory they are so determined to have. In 2018, I published a video in which I made clear that Mr. Laurent Esso, who is Minister of Justice and Keeper of the Seals of La République du Cameroon, after a visit to the diaspora in Belgium, wrote to the President of the Republic, and I have a copy of that letter. I even did brandish it on that communication, in which he said that during his travels, he had realized that there was some school of thought among the people of the Southern Cameroons still favorable to federalism, and that school of thought do not have a lot of traction, and that it will make a lot of sense for the government of La République du Cameroon to covertly abate, sponsor, and push that school of thought, not because they intend to return to the federal system or favor it, but because by so doing, it will fragment our movement. It will break our collective unity and resolve, and it will weaken us and make it possible for them to overcome us. Our people listen to things and forget. So all these accusations you are hearing left and right, oh, they want to go and negotiate federalism, they want to go. There is no federalism anywhere on offer. My dear brothers and sisters of the Southern Cameroons, it takes two to tango. You can't sell when there is no buyer. For business to take place, for market to take place, there must be a seller and there must be a buyer. So even those who are in this movement, who are in the Southern Cameroon seeking federation, like Mr. Agbobala, we have seen him. We even saw him cry virtually on his knees at that thing they called national dialogue, asking at least for something to take to those who were propagating the federalist school of thought. Hey, hell no. It didn't succeed. And you forget that in 2017, Mr. Bala and Mr. Fontaine were arrested and captured because we were talking federalism. But after Mr. Laurent Esso's letter went, no, federalist ideas were no longer anathema. But not because La République wants to go back to federalism, but because it serves as a divisive tool. That system only thrives when you can have something to use in dividing people in order to prevail against them. So even this issue of talks, La République is not ready. And if you are a clear analyst of the situation on the ground, you will tell yourself the conditions have not yet been met to make La République du Cameroon see negotiations as an emergency. Once we attain that, we will all see with our eyes. Let's stop all this stupid infighting. Let's stop all these stupid trepidations. My dear people, for those of you who ask the question, Mr. Akuro, is it true that you are in among us fighting for federalism? Let me answer you. Is it true that you are an agent of La République du Cameroon posted among us? Let me answer you. Listen. On the 17th of January, 2017, when La République du Cameroon went on a rampage and decided to capture Mr. Fontaine Neba, Mr. Agbobala Nkongo Felix, and launch a manhunt for Wilfred Tassang, for Barrister Yambe, for all of us who were connected to the consortium. Their objective was to end any forms of agitation from our people with respect to the situation of the people of the Southern Cameroons. And they knew that arresting the top, cutting the head, the rest of the body will go berserk, and everybody will be scattered and they will prevail. That is why, to make sure that there was not going to be any connection between the people on the ground and the diaspora, they did not only launch the manhunt after us, but they equally severed the Southern Cameroon's entire territory from the internet. Their victory was just short-lived because one thing happened. Because God Almighty had positioned me, Mba Akuro, alone in Yaoundé, because all the other leaders, the other officials of the consortium were either in Bamenda or in Buea. Alone in Yaoundé, where there was still internet, God gave me advisors who happened to have been at my residence at that specific moment when this thing was read on radio on the 5 p.m. news. We put our heads together with the Southern Cameroonians who are still on the territory, doing everything day and night to help this movement move. We put our heads together and agreed that the best way out was to create an official channel, export the leadership of the movement to the diaspora. It is Mba Akuro sitting here and talking to you who took the pains. I picked my phone and called Pat Tassan where he was struggling, running to go and get a place to better hide. I called Mr. Maun Fu Joseph, who was also looking for a place to hide. And I called Barrister Andang Joffred, who was also getting a hiding place, and told them, this is what I have discussed with some brethren. This is the conclusion we have come to. And right now, I just want to seek your opinion to send the power abroad. Nobody had the possibility to participate because they all needed to switch out their phones because they could be pursued through their phones. And just after this exchange, I went ahead, Mba Akuro, and crafted the letter that appointed Mark Barra and Ivor Tapam as the interim leaders of the consortium. And I crafted this letter as if that was Barrister Nkongo Felix Agbobala writing. You call this fraud. But let Martin Luther King say it in life. Sometimes it's what you call a necessary maladjustment. I had to do it because that was the right thing to do at that time. That was the right thing to do at that time to let the people on the mainland accept to be run from the diaspora. That is how power came to the diaspora. I wrote that letter, had it well arranged, and put Barrister Nkongo Felix Agbobala's signature on it. I called Mark Barra and told him that is exactly what had happened. I called Tapam Ivor and told him that is exactly what had happened. They knew that the letter was not from Bala, that was written by me, on agreement with those people whose names I have called. And that is how the people from the mainland got up the following morning to understand that Agbobala, who was the accepted leader of the consortium, and the one that the people were looking up to, had officially transferred power abroad. The people yielded to the leadership of Mark and Ivor. And trust me, these two gentlemen did a marvelous job, a wonderful job. I am of that group of persons who refuses to see only the negative things in people. I at least search to see if I can find something positive to hang on. These two gentlemen did a marvelous job to keep the movement. And when I even noticed that some voices were rising in the diaspora to doubt whether it was Bala who signed that letter, on my way escaping, God made it possible that I had to meet Pat Tassan Wilfred. At his own time, Pat Tassan Wilfred will tell you the miracle that brought us together again, for me to take a video recording of him to send out there with him on record confirming the leadership of Mark and Ivor. Mba Akuro did that. It didn't take more than 48 hours for the government of the Republic of Cameroon to know that that is what I did. And they realized that their plans were foiled because of one man whom they trusted so much and was working with them. And that is how they launched a manhunt after me and haunted me beyond imagination. I don't want to spend a lot of your time explaining to you what happened that I got saved. And today, that one man who was able to do this very technical and important thing at the time when it was most needed is tagged an agent of La République. I've refused to go down this lane so much in defense of my personal self. But I bring this out today just so that you have the facts before you and you can make a judgment. You also recall that on the morning of the 18th of January, it was reported in newspapers everywhere that Patasan had escaped from Bamenda and was in Yaoundé and hiding in a diplomatic mission in Yaoundé. I sent out that information to the press for obvious reasons, to give Patrick Fatasan the opportunity to better get a place and hide, so that you have the opportunity to continue this movement. I don't want to say that the reward I get for all of that is, mudslinging, insults, and all whatnot. I simply was doing what God had picked me out to do. And I'm delighted that I did it. Those who continue to call me names, to fling insults and everything, they are part of the plan. I wouldn't normally respond to this, but I'm doing this because I realized that there are a lot of people out there who are now totally confused with the avalanche of information that they are having. Just so that these records are set clear. Now let me come back to this. Chris Anu says Sisi Kujilo Sayuk Tabe is forming an army and is creating a coalition. And he tells you exactly the purpose of that army, what that army is set to do. You believe it? Let me give you examples of the things Chris Anu has said. One, when the people, the members of SCRO, the Southern Cameroons Relief Organization in Canada, had an initiative to organize a collaborative conference that will bring all the movements and leaders of the struggle together in 2018 to enable us better prosecute this movement for freedom. Because the initiative did not come from Mr. Chris Anu and his IG. All of you will remember, Chris Anu is on record and the video is out there. I haven't come out to say the conference being called in Canada was at the behest of Mr. Paul Atanganji. Whereas he knew the people who were organizing this conference. Whereas his IG and Mr. Sako has been calling these people to collect money from them, to get contributions from them. Whereas they had visited Canada, sat down, ate and dined with these people. But Chris Anu came out and pretended and said the organizers of that conference were, people under the control of Atanga Ponji. In the end, we held that conference in Washington. The same people who initiated this conference in Canada were invited and were part. They came, held discussions with all of us, with Mr. Sako present. At that time, were they still the mandatees of Paul Atanganji? Hell no. Next, when people were going to hold a conference in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania called the APNC, the same Chris Anu came out and announced that one Colonel Bamkwi was already in Pennsylvania and was going to either poison or arrest people on American territory and take them back home. And warned people not to go there because Bamkwi was there. In the end, that conference took place. Mr. Kometa, who was with him in the act, was at that conference. I don't know if anybody spotted Bamkwi there. What happened to anyone there? The same Chris Anu. These examples are legion. Legion, there are too many of them. Once you cease to be a member of the choir that sings the chorus to their tunes, You are an agent of La Republique. You are Satan and need to be crucified. My dear people, I would like to end this conversation here. It wasn't my intention to take it this long, but definitely we will have another opportunity to examine other very important things that should edify you to understand that these tactics of fear-mongering, these tactics of planting panic and confusion in the minds of the people will not work. It will not help us. It will not take us forward. It will not move our movement by a pin. My dear people, it is time for us to learn, to understand that every single actor in this movement is playing an important role, a very important role. I have pity, a lot of pity, for Barrister Fulgenso, because the first time that I, Mba Akuro, learned that Barrister Fulgenso was going to run into a rift with Sisiku Ayuk-Tabe was from a Nigerian lawyer who had been member of parliament, Honorable Earl, who told me, and I have that conversation, how Barrister Fulgenso was embezzling the money sent to him to provide logistics for lawyers coming in from Bamenda and Boya each time the matter of the Naira 10 was called in court. And he, Barrister Earl, said he was the one who drew the attention of Sisiku Ayuk-Tabe to that injustice, that a lot of those lawyers came and took home either 10 or 15,000 to pay their transport, pay hotels and everything, while Barrister Fulgenso reported that he was giving to some 50 and others 100,000. That discrepancy was too much. And the same Barrister Earl said he almost ran into an altercation with Barrister Fulgenso in Lagos, or rather in Nigeria, as a result of that kind of thieving attitude. And so Sisiku Ayuk-Tabe, from what I gathered from the other lawyers, had to step in and insist that all the lawyers who come, who will be going to Yaoundé for that matter, should receive their money in the presence of a third party, and the sheet where they collect their money, they should all sign officially, and he should also see a copy of it. That was the point where there was a break, the breakup of the relationship between Barrister Fulgenso and Sisiku Ayuk-Tabe. That is why today he will call Sisiku Ayuk-Tabe all sorts of names. He's an idiot, he's a bandit, he's compromised, he's this and that. It is shameful for an adult like this one to be involved in this kind of things. Very shameful. I had this information several months ago, but I desisted to talk about it because to me, it was mean. I felt that that adult will have the opportunity to sit down and think and reconcile himself to himself and come out there and do the honorable thing, put the record straight. Somebody is virtually dead and you spend all your energy to kill him further. How preposterous. My dear people, we have to learn from our mistakes. We have to learn from our mistakes. We have to learn from our mistakes. We will succeed in this movement. We will succeed in this movement. But the only thing we must do to make sure we succeed in this movement is make sure those who have transformed the struggle of the people of the Southern Cameroons into their jobs, into their farms, where they tap resources and are bent on destroying everybody and the entire movement to protect those jobs, should be allowed to keep their jobs without necessarily rocking these movements. I don't have any reason calling on anybody who is funding them not to fund them. You give them your money because you have the conviction that they will use it for what you want them to use it for. Whether they use it for that or not, that's a matter between you and them. It doesn't concern me. But the one thing I will not sleep and let happen is see these same people in the frenzy of protecting those jobs, ruin the aspirations of our people for freedom. To God be the glory.